All right, Zone of Special Operations, ZOSO, and State of Emergency, which is SOE, are two of the government's latest crime plan initiatives, although there have been reports on the effectiveness of these initiatives. With us, opposition spokesman on national security, Mr. Fitzjackson, and he believes those are just quick fixes to our crime problem. He's with the chairman of the POCJ Standing Committee with National Security and Justice, Lieutenant Commander George Overton. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Welcome to Smile Jamaica.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Let me start with you, Lieutenant Commander. We still have two ZOSO areas, Mount Salem and Denham Town, right. And there is what are the other ones? What do you call the other ones?
The states of emergency.
States of emergency. That's in Clarendon.
St. James and Northern St. Catherine.
There is talk that it's not working. Is that so?
No. If we look at the information that's available, we have seen a significant fall in crime in those specific spaces. So what it has done is reduce the criminal element's ability to perpetrate crime in that space. But when we look at the national numbers, we actually see shootings and murder, which are the things we use to determine public safety and security. Shootings and murders are up nationally. So all we have really done is displaced the perpetrators of crime.
This says Monday, April 23. Over the past week, several murders have been reported in Denham Town, St. James and North St. Catherine, all areas under special operations. That's not so?
Yes, you do. You have the shootings and the murders in those areas. And it's not a large amount, which is a bit of concern, because with the massive presence of security personnel of both JCF and the JDF, one would expect not to have any murders. But to come back to the point you raised earlier on about the effectiveness of the ZOSO and the state of emergency, put it in context. After 2 years in office, the Prime Minister comes to the country and says its plan to deal with the national crime problem is a ZOSO. In Mount Salem, to begin with, Mount Salem was not the appropriate place to go because their murder stats was not as they reported it to be.
You agree with that, sir?
There were other areas.
You agree with that, sir?
Mark, the truth is that Mount Salem is at the doorstep of Cornwall Regional. And the reasons why we probably did not have the murder numbers as high as it ought to have been is that a lot of the people who were shot were saved because they were at the doorstep of Cornwall Regional Hospital. So shootings were pretty high in the area, although the transition from a shooting to a murder was somewhat suppressed because of proximity.
Yeah, I don't want to hog the interview. Right. Just before Empress.
You can hog it. That's normal.
Again, I want to go back because you said earlier that those areas, the crime was not in those specific areas. But this says several murders have been reported in Denham Town, St. James, and North St. Catherine. So is it in the area where they have, or no?
Yes, you have, but significantly reduced from the trend prior to those declarations.
Okay.
But the argument or the point about both ZOSO and SOE working, as I was mentioning before, those were the strategy to deal with the national crime problem.
Not just the areas.
Not just the area. Because as George rightfully pointed out earlier, when you have no murders or very little murders in the ZOSO state of emergency areas, the numbers are increasing in other areas. Take, for example, South St. Andrew. It's a 44% increase over last year. You have those massive increases in Clarendon. You have those massive increases in Westmoreland and other areas. So those are not dealing with the national problem. And some lives can't be more important than others.
Sorry to cut you. So I like to be solution oriented. You know, I need to get into what are you proposing to implement in this national crime plan, because I read that 5 guns were used in 92 shootings, which means that it's an organized crime situation, and therefore we need to know what do you suggest as stakeholders in this.
For me personally,
opposition spokesperson.
For me personally, as I've said it, been saying the same thing over and over. To deal with the crime problem, it must be intelligence driven.
Okay.
To answer just the same point you make, we have said from last year, Prime Minister, target these areas. Look at these, the Montego Bay, all the areas with the high crime rate. Establish a task force and equip them with the requisite investigative tools so that they can seek to identify the perpetrators. Because the police already told you about the gangs that they have, you know. Obviously, the intelligence capacity is very low. Beef that up so you can find them. You can put lawyers in those teams that can ensure that the evidence that the police have when they take them to court can get them get the conviction. And mention about conviction. You know, the conviction rate is no more than 6%.
Well, that's absolutely terrible. So what resources do you think is needed? Something going to have to give. So we're going to take the money out of somewhere to beef up the intelligence task force.
Well, yes.
Where do you, I mean, really and truly, how is it that we tell me?
What has happened to us is that we have declared these 4 zones. And we have squeezed the balloon without the ability to contain it. And therefore, you squeeze it, it must bulge and come somewhere else. So what we have done is displaced the criminal element. And we do not have the resources in all the surrounding areas to deal with that bulge. Nor do we have the intelligence on the ground to identify these new faces in the communities and go at them to see whether they are your perpetrators or not. So what all you have is the criminal element shifting geographic space. So we need the resources on the ground to be able to, yes, contain the volatile areas, but also be able to sweep up in the surrounding areas whatever may flee.
Question to you
areas.
both. You first, Lieutenant Commander, should we have a state of emergency right across the country?
Well, having lived through the 1976 state of emergency as a serving officer of the JDF, it gave you the ability to go at wherever your intelligence led you without having to seek special permissions and so on, because you had the power. I believe that what has happened to us now is that we have recognized that we have limited resources and we cannot cover the ground that we may need to. But I do believe it would have equipped the security forces to respond rapidly to the intelligence information that may arise.
So that's a yes, sir.
That's a yes.
What about you, opposition spokesperson Fitz Jackson? You wouldn't recommend that?
No, we know where the hotspots are throughout the country. And if we can't deal with those that we already know, right, how is it you expect we're going to deal with? Because,
I mean, we're in the hotspots, as you mentioned, and we're squeezing them into other communities. If we were in every community, then there wouldn't really be anywhere to hide.
No, but George already tell you the capacity to do that.
To do that is not there.
And then what you have is what the people are reporting about. The hundreds of people are just randomly just being scooped up, locked away for days. And you know, it's anything about it, you know. For many people, it's an abstract thing until it's their son. Right? Or their neighbor. Then it becomes a questionable activity.
But did we not know, sir, did we not know that because of what's going on, that you're going to be put out?
That some of us are going to have
No, but again, the reality is the cry for the removal of the state of emergency and the zones of special operation is coming from the human rights group. And rightfully so. We cannot trod on the rights of our citizens forever.
And of the majority.
We understand that there has to be some acceptance of dislocation and inconvenience, but it cannot be this extended abuse. And therefore, I believe what's necessary right now, fix those abuses. Pulling off the soldiers and the police from the states of emergency and the ZOSO is not going to fix our problem. If we pull them off today, and the criminal element returns, confidence in our ability to deal with it is lost.
Gentlemen, I know we only have a few more minutes. We speak about intelligence. Let's look at some of the things that are currently in place. What about this new Jamaica Eye program that you see people...
Embryonic stage.
Embryonic. but what potential does it have? Because I really, sorry, but I'm still not hearing a definitive crime plan strategy. I mean, I'm sure you have dinner with the Prime Minister. What conversations are we having with the new Minister of National Security?
As you know, the PSOJ has been pushing for this summit to discuss public safety and security. We have been stalled and stalled and stalled, and the position right now is that the Prime Minister has said Vale Royal talks, and it is one of the main agenda items, I believe, for the Vale Royal talk, because it has to be a bipartisan position. We cannot take public safety and security as a political football. We have to have a very unified approach, and we have to ensure that we do it right.
No, further to that point about the Vale Royal, we have made it clear at the Vale Royal that we want it to be broader than just the opposition. We want the critical stakeholders like his group, because it's not left, as was rightfully said, to just us alone. The chambers of commerce all across the place have been making that cry, and the government has been reluctant to respond. For what reason, I cannot explain.
Lieutenant Commander, this is attributed to you. I don't think the authorities have been able to measure the actual size and impact of organized crime. We talk about the number of active gangs in the country being monitored, but I don't think we have come to grips with the coordination of these gangs. That's attributed to you. Is that
yes, and I stand by it. You know, you mentioned earlier the matter of the number of shootings that 5 guns have been involved in. I firmly believe that there are enforcers. It's not gun rental. Right? If you are a bad man and I get a gun, I ain't giving you back.
Right.
And you can't come for it. But there are enforcers within the criminal world. And what you are seeing, those 5 guns are probably some serious enforcers within that organized network.
Final question from me, sir. Do we need outside help?
I believe so.
From where?
I've said wherever. I have said that, one, optimize what we have in the JCF, the JDF, and include our retired personnel who are available. And if we need to go externally to get that, so be it.
You agree with that, sir?
Yes.
Where would we get this help from?
Well, there are our regional partners, and I believe that there are discussions already underway. We have seen the Israelis here, we have seen the Americans here, we have seen the Colombians here working, giving advice, not necessarily on the ground, but certainly helping with the whole planning and strategy development as to how we go forward with our methodologies. And
I think you probably need to recruit some young, intelligent, creative Jamaicans who can help with the intelligence program and apps and things to really...
The expertise exists. It's not something...
So why is it taking so long? This is the problem. It's always hearing about it.
The challenge we have is that there is no national public safety and security plan that galvanizes the nation around it.
Well, we've been saying that from last year.
Yeah, we have to go, sir. Opposition spokesman on national security, Mr. Fitz-Jackson, and chairman of the PSAJ's Standing Committee with National Security and Justice, Lieutenant Commander George Overton. Thanks for coming, sir.
Thank you. I feel like I want to put on my armor and just